Okay, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're joining this conversation from. I'm super excited to be here with you to talk about something that I believe would make the difference for your business. Just permit me quickly, I believe you can hear me. Please get into the comment box. Just tell me yes, I am audible. I think this would also help me to, make sure that I'm being heard, which is very crucial. A lot of things we are going to be discussing today will be born out of things that I was able to learn on the journey. And I'm going to be sharing so many stories with you today. A number of you that know my style, this is always about stories, how and the things that I've been able to learn on the journey, right? And these are some of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So in today's conversation, I want to guide you on strategies for finding and choosing business partners who complement you, strategies for finding and choosing business partners who complement you. By the way, my name is Eyitayo Ogunyemi, and I'm an author, I'm a business coach, I train entrepreneurs, I hold entrepreneurs by the hand, and something I'm passionate about is Africa. I'm passionate about African emancipation, and I believe that your business and my business are the tools for African emancipation. Of course, Africa is our home, so we have to make it great and great and great together. So let me start by sharing a story with you. This story is quite personal, so I am going to be sharing my story with you. And in some parts of this conversation, I'm also going to be sharing certain stories that would, not be my direct stories, but things that you definitely can learn from. And that's how this conversation is meant to be. I believe that when people share stories, you will be able to learn faster and better. And then I believe that that will make the difference for your business as well. So let me start by sharing my story with you. 2015, I started Low Accent, and from the very beginning, I've always known that Low Accent would be a transgenerational brand. And one of those tools to build such structure definitely is through partnerships. So you see why I'm passionate about partnerships. I'm not necessarily saying that this is the only pathway to building transgenerational businesses, but I am telling you that it's one of the ways you can build transgenerational businesses. So for me, this was it. Low accent, transgenerational in nature, and I knew I needed to learn as much as I possibly can lay my hands on as far as it has to do with partnership. So what this made me to do is to put my hand on operating as a partnership from the very beginning of the business. And I had that excitement, and I wanted to start partnership from the get-go. I wanted to start that partnership right away. And I must be frank enough to admit some of my errors, which I'm going to be sharing with you in the course of this conversation. So I wanted to start that partnership, and one of those errors I made was that I was not mature enough for handling a partnership at that time. I had a good relationship that, I translated it to a good partnership, and the problem wasn't with my partner, the problem was with me. I was not matured enough. So I had all the excitement, but I did not have the knowledge to handle a partnership. And that made me to almost lose that friendship when that partnership didn't work. I don't know if this resonates with you. Have you started something before with somebody, and then on the journey you started saying that you guys were not connecting, and then, well, not as if you do not. There's no compatibility, but the challenge sometimes could be that you were just not ready for that relationship. I've had relationships in life where before I married, I'm married now, right? But before this particular phase in my life, I've had relationship where my friend, as it were, at that time said, "Look, if you cannot build six packs and build body muscles, I cannot marry you. And she dragged me to the gym to register. And I hope somebody is laughing about that on this conversation. But man, that is a story. And the lesson I'm bringing into business is the fact that sometimes we are just not ready to handle relationships because partnership is a form of relationship. So I was not ready at that period to handle that partnership, and this almost landed me the relationship. It almost cost me the friendship because the partnership did not work. And there are many stories as well, not just about me. There are many stories of entrepreneurs. Um, I've put in 13 years into law practice, and then out of that, I've put in 7 years holding entrepreneurs by the hands, sometimes representing investors, sometimes representing business people, and I've seen a whole lot. I've seen businesses, relationships that worked, and I've seen those relationships that did not work. I've been called to midwife relationships and I've been called to separate relationships, meaning as a lawyer, I've done partnership agreements, brought people together, and sometimes too, I've had to do dissolution agreements, which means separate people, separate partnerships. So it's what Yoruba will say, Ojutiri. My eyes are seen a whole lot. And over the years, I've also learned. I've learned not just because of being a lawyer and being privileged to see the ups and downs of partnerships. I've also learned by reason of the things I had to experience as somebody building a transgenerational business and knowing that there's a need for partnership in that business. So, what I want to share with you is a product of my personal walk through life and a product of my professional journey handling a number of relationships. And so I hope you're excited about this. And to start with, I believe that I'm addressing as many African entrepreneurs, right? Some of you will be conversant with that African proverb, that adage that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you need to go together. And what does this mean? So, first thing I want you to understand is that life itself is a product of relationships. Life is a product of relationships. Wherever we find ourselves today, we're a product of relationships. Even, the continuity of life itself is born out of relationships. So, one way or the other, at some point in life, we'll find ourselves moving into relationships. And partnership is a form of relationship as well. Partnership is a form of relationship. And there is this saying, right? Which, of course, you might have heard before. It says they were naked and they were not ashamed. I think there are many, entrepreneurs that are looking into going into partnerships should get into that phase in life where they're able to say they are naked and not ashamed. In essence, healthy partnerships are born out of relationships where there is a willingness in the first place to be as open as possible to one another or to each other, as the case may be. Very crucial in any relationship. Otherwise, you'd find that things begin to happen. I know many years ago there was a relationship that I brought together where this entrepreneur, usually very passionate. So if you are one and you are listening to me, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. And then the investor on the other side as well, very passionate to support this entrepreneur. But at the end of the day, what happened? Both parties had to go their separate ways because it was extremely difficult for that entrepreneur, that founder, to be as open as possible to allow the investor to know the in and out of the business. And so they began to have differences, and this was a terrible one. So it's why I'm saying that, look, in partnership, one of those things I've seen cause a lot of disagreements is the fact that there is no openness as much as it should be. So you have to learn to be open. You have to learn to be naked and not ashamed. And this is just an interesting thing again because I've seen a lot of trend among entrepreneurs from my years of studying partnerships, from my years of teaching partnership and teaching business strategies, and a lot of other things. And interestingly, don't be shocked, recently I had to make a request to have a private conversation with somebody that has spent, went through has given 40 something years of her life into partnership, and has been able to grow that partnership such that she has even now retired from what she founded. And that thing which she founded, that business, continues to thrive. Imagine you getting to the phase in life where you are able to retire and what you gave birth to still continues to trend and to thrive. And I think this should be the ambition. This should really be the hope of every entrepreneur that is on this conversation with me. So I sat with her to understand certain things, and these are eye-opening things, things from what I've personally experienced, and a whole lot of things. And so I want to share with you three very crucial things, three very, very important things I believe will be very, very handy on your journey to becoming the best partner, because I believe and I know that you need to make yourself the best partner before you begin to think of bringing in a partner to that board. Remember, the topic we are anchoring today is strategies for finding and choosing business partners that complement you. And in today's conversation, what I want to focus on is how understanding yourself, how the understanding of self can help you to attract the right relationships, how understanding yourself can help you to attract the right partners in business. And this is very crucial. Why is this crucial again? Relationship is also about maturity. Remember the story I gave earlier on, how I got into a relationship at a phase in my life where my friend wanted me to go to the gym and build six packs because she felt that she couldn't marry somebody that doesn't have the muscle built up, right? Muscle build up, rather. Pardon me. So this is it, right? It's relationships must be built on maturity. Imagine putting a baby where other people are walking. The baby would mess up because the baby will continue to crawl. And we've had people that have gone into partnership without being emotionally, mentally, and sound for it. And at the end of the day, the whole thing went sad, the whole thing went bad. And I don't want that to be you. And of course, that's why we're having this conversation. So before we get into the bigger picture, it's important for us to deal with you as a person, which is why we are starting this conversation on how understanding yourself, how understanding self can help you to attract the right partners. It can position you to attract the right partners. So this is very crucial in what we are doing. So 3 points I want to share with you. Number 1 point: self-awareness. I want you to write that point, self-awareness. Please put it in the comment box, self-awareness, and please like what we are doing. Remember to share. This is very crucial. Remember to invite people. Self-awareness. Self-awareness is very, very crucial. It's actually the first thing that you need to make sure that you master. What are we talking about in self-awareness? You have to discover yourself. A saying goes this way: oh man, know thyself. You have to discover yourself. You have to understand your vision. You have to understand your mission. You have to understand even your ambition. It's very crucial. If you do not have an understanding of yourself, then you cannot bring in anybody to become a partner. It's very crucial to know yourself. If you do not know what connects for you, if you do not know, somebody once said something. He said, if you cannot stand for something, you will fall for everything. If you cannot stand for something, thank you, Daniel. If you can't stand for something, you are likely to fall for everything, anything and everything. And this is life. So before you say you are going into partnership, it's important for you to come to that phase where you have self-awareness, a sense of understanding of who you really are and what connects for you. And I don't know if some of you know the story of one of, now the former president of France, Nicolas Sarkozy. I think that's with his wife. at the time, Cecilia. Now, there was something interesting about this relationship. For 20 something years, they were together, but then Nicolas became the president of France. And at that period, the wife told him, look, I cannot handle this anymore. And she had to pull out of that relationship. And why did she pull out of that relationship? She pulled out because she made mention of the fact that, look, there is a fundamental difference in our values. I want to be a private person. I do not want to be seen in the public. I want to be a family person. I don't want to be a public person. But here was Nicholas, with an ambition to be a public servant. So sometimes you would find that there is a difference in who you are and who someone else around you is. If you do not have that self-awareness, it becomes extremely difficult to know who connects with you in life and in business. This is where self-awareness is very crucial. So self-awareness is always very crucial for whatever you do. And remember what I said as well. If you cannot stand for something, you are likely to fall for everything. I remember the story of Twitter, now what we now know as X. Some of you would know that story as well. How Twitter used to be a platform that has moderation. How Twitter was a platform for regulated speech. But somebody came along, invested in that business, and had a fundamentally different perspective to the question of freedom of speech. He wanted ease of speech. And we're talking about Elon Musk here. He bought over Twitter, redefined the value system of that business, and today Twitter, called X, now does not have any form of regulation or speech. Interestingly, during the early period of the time after the acquisition, somebody went on Twitter and then bought the name Jesus. Part of freedom of speech anyway. Isn't that interesting? So what's the lesson I'm bringing out here? Somehow, sometimes, if you do not have certain fundamental ethics to who you are as a person, and you bring in people, whether as partners or investor, they are likely to rename that baby. They are likely to have a fundamental, a diverse, like a switch from what ought to be, a switch from what you should have understood about yourself and what you are giving birth to. And eventually, you'll find that you're operating a business that does not have, or seemingly does not have, a value. So it's important for you to have a self-awareness. And I hope you're getting the information I'm trying to pass across in this conversation. You need to have a self-awareness, and this would help you in whatever you do. Very, very crucial. Now, let me go to the second point, because I just want to, rush through this, make sure that this is short, sharp, and juicy, and you get the hint on the point, right? The second point that you need is to also have an understanding of that business. Thank you. Please remember to invite your friends as well as we continue this conversation. So, second point, identify what your brand values are. Identify the business values. Now, remember that the first point I talked about is self-awareness. The second point is an awareness of the baby. There's a difference between the mother and the child. When it comes to business, treat the business as the child, treat yourself as the mother. The mother must understand herself first before you are able to understand the kind of child you are bringing to life. This is very crucial. And I'm speaking today from the perspective of founders, especially. This conversation would help anybody into partnership, most especially founders. This is very crucial. An adage in Africa again says something about the fact that the whole community names the child. And interestingly, if you do not name your child, the whole community will name the child. I remember, especially my firstborn, uh, as the child was being given birth to, everybody started sending in their names. Not just parents, not just grandparents. Everybody that heard the news started sending in their name. And that name was what they were using for that child for a while, until we were able to then do a naming ceremony and started saying, this is the name of our daughter. And the point I'm making is this: if you do not name your child, the community, the public will name that child for you. So before you think of getting into partnership, you must have an understanding, especially from the founder perspective, have an understanding of what is this baby going to be all about. If you do not have that understanding, the investor that is coming on board of that business will name that child for you. If you do not have that understanding, the partner you are bringing on board is going to name that child for you. And don't get me wrongly here, get me right. I am not saying that you should have a stigma. I am not saying that you should have a stigma where, you know, you're being dogmatic. I mean, sorry, a dogma rather, where you're being dogmatic about what you think that the business is all about, and you are not being open and willing to even get other people's perspective and all of that. There's a difference between the vision or the what the business is all about and the means of getting to that place. There's a difference between how do I put it now? Your values, what you consider as the things that should not, they are immutable, they are unchangeable, they are the things that define that business, as different from the things that can be tampered with. And take the example of Twitter again for, I mean, as a typical example. Twitter was built around regulated speech. This was supposedly the vision. It was so much the vision that Twitter was more or less a not for profit. But somebody came along, invested. It wasn't an ethical investment. Invested, but had a different value system. And so this person started naming the child, and eventually this person took over the child. Many entrepreneurs are having the same thing today. Many entrepreneurs have become, slaves to a child that they gave birth to because they entered into the wrong partnerships, or they entered into partnerships without being ready to handle that kind of relationship. And that's why you should not fall victim of that kind of a thing. That's why you're having this conversation. And these are crucial things that you need to build that business. So it's important for you to name your child before somebody else names the child. And I want you to just put in the comment box, I mean, what do you think about this? Let me get your comments. Let me get your questions. And if you have life experiences, please feel free to share, because I know that this conversation is going to transform your business, is going to transform many businesses that are to come. So, I mean, identify what the brand values are. Identify what the brand values are. Understand, have a self-awareness. This is very crucial. I think it was 2 years ago or early last year, I started talking about brand culture. And, most times these things I talk about, they come from that walk of life experience, and not just something you go on Google, begin to search and all of that. So I started talking about brand culture, how having an understanding of the values, building a business around the values and the vision can become that edge, that strategic advantage to make sure that that business is competitive in and out of season, whether it's a period of crisis, maybe global financial crisis or any other thing, how that business can continue to thrive. So just in case, you might want to also make a request to have access to that series, brand culture. This is very crucial for what you are building. You need to build culture around that brand. And building culture around that brand, you need to understand, have a hint of what that business is all about. And make sure it is when you have a hint of what the business is all about that you are able to bring the right relationships into that business that can further that business. Imagine it's like having a single mother, right, taking care of a child, and then this single mother, you have a girl child, and then you decide, without understanding the needs of that child, you decide to just go ahead to bring in any guy for whatever reason, and then this guy becomes the reason that that child lost everything, including sense of being alive, sense of that impact that that child is supposed to have. So this is what many people do in business when they have the wrong reasons for bringing in partners, and then all of that. Of course, this leads me to my last point, which is where we are going to close this conversation, because I want it to be as short as possible and as juicy as possible. And remember to share, because what I share is not something you find outside anyhow. So please remember to share this conversation, send the link to people, let them be a part of it. They need to learn. Everybody needs to learn. We are all learning, and I'm also still learning. So feel free to also share your own comments in the chat box, ask questions. These questions are things that will guide me to go back as well and ask questions and learn further. So the last thing that brings me to is the fact that, sometimes some entrepreneurs do not consider compatibility before bringing in partners. When you have an understanding, a self-awareness, you have a hint of what that child is all about, that company. It's important for you to then get to that phase where you are able to analyze, am I compatible with this person, this prospective partner, this person that is coming in as an investor, this person that is coming in as my partner? Are we compatible? Before you can ask the question of compatibility, you must cross the order of self-awareness. You must cross the order of having a hint of what that baby is going to be all about, with the sense of flexibility and without a dogma, as said earlier on. And then you can begin to look at the conversation around compatibility with people around you. And this is very crucial, right? Very, very crucial. Again, an African adage says that, it takes the whole community. It takes the whole community to train a child. You can give birth to a child, but it takes the whole community to train a child. And in training that child, imagine if you grow up in a place that it does not connect with who you want to become. It becomes a problem. I listened to a conversation a few weeks ago where somebody was talking about Richard Branson, and said, look, she found through his book that he became who he became because of that kind of nurturing that the parents gave to him. And some of us, I remember growing up in Agege, where a lot of things happen. And don't mind me, I'm just an exemption. That's the truth. And there are those few instances against the rule. But the point I'm making is that the child you want to give birth to, you must find the right relationships and the right environment. Find the right environment where you will find the right partner that can come into that business. In representing the stake, in representing many investors over the years, one of those things I've seen is most investors, venture capitalists or angel investors, most of these people are people that are ethical investors. There are things they look out for, other than looking out for the value system of the person that they are investing in. The business in. Because again, investors don't invest in businesses, really. Investors invest in people, right? But the other thing is, they also invest in that business by reason of certain things that represent their value system. For instance, some investors will tell you, look, I cannot invest in a business that is not tech enabled. That is an ethical investor, an investor that has built his or her ethics around tech. And a lot of other things. Some investors will tell you that I'm an investor that believes in Islamic banking, and that is how they tailor their investment. So investors also look for compatibility, and you must also look for compatibility. I've seen the case of many entrepreneurs, and get me right here, many entrepreneurs bring in investors or bring in partners because the investor has money or because the partner has name. If you try to use people, at the end of the day, what you become is a baby mama. Let me repeat that. If you try to use people, what you might likely become is a baby mama. And I got into that conversation. I listened to somebody that was talking about the whole story around baby mama, how this whole thing started. And you find that whether it's baby mama or baby papa, because there are also men that do this kind of things, whether it's baby mama or baby papa, the fact is, two things that drive people into that kind of situation is either, I have no reason, I just like this person, and I think that this person, I just want to have child for this person, I just want this person to have my child, right? baby papa, baby mama, or oh, this person has the money, I just want this. At the end of the day, you are not thinking about that child. If that child wants more than all these things in your very hands, it's important for you to make sure that you do not become a baby mama. I promised I was going to give an assignment after this conversation, and I want to be very strict with time, and I hope you've been able to learn one or two things from this conversation. I'm going to continue this conversation. I want to make it strictly 30 minutes, and that's why I'm looking at my timer here and I'm stopping here today. Please remember to share the video. I'm going to save this video. Remember to share it with people. And Sunday next week, I will get into another part of the conversation. I hope you've been truly blessed by today's conversation. And remember, use it to your advantage. Use these things we have said, they will make your business to grow and to glow. Thank you, and do have a wonderful week ahead.